Hello and welcome to the 49 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Want to say thank you to our sponsors for the season, Academy Sports and Outdoors, Soldier Sports, Tecovas Boots, Turtle Box. As we mentally close one season and get ready for an off season, just so appreciative of those sponsors and all their support throughout the season. Very appreciative of all you listeners and watchers for all your enthusiasm and support. This is a podcast. We're not doing the live stream, but boy, the live streams have been fun. Speaking of fun people in my life, I've got Sauce here. I've got Zebby Barrels, Joe Healy, and Aaron J. Fitt. Gentlemen, we're home from Omaha. I brought a cold home, and now J-Ro, my wife, is sick. You can imagine how that's playing. That's not going well. It's not a
Great
feather
job.
in my cap. Yeah,
Great job, Runes.
I don't know how I got sick. I got tons of sleep in Omaha, really made great choices.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any
It's a
thoughts,
good question.
gentlemen?
It's a good question. I think it's coming in and out of the air conditioning, into the heat and back into, that we're going to blame that, Runes. It's not you. It's not your choice.
Fitzy. Seamus McKnight, not negative 100 on the nonsense tracker. He kept the temperatures in the press box too cold. It's his fault.
I like that we blame Seamus for everything that goes on in the press box.
What is his technical title? He's the PA guy? Is that right? No.
He's the official scorer.
Official scorer, sorry. Negative 10 for me. Sorry, Seamus. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry, I cut you off.
It is a famously cold press box. Like you know. And actually, the hotter it is, the colder it tends to be in there because the AC is just cranked all the way up to 100, And so yeah, you got to bring a layer. That's that's the advice I always give rookies that are going to Omaha for the first time is bring a layer.
Bradley was going to wear shorts to the press box first day. I'm like, listen, check yourself, young man.
Hey, Rook.
That's not the play.
It's not the play. Boys, what I'm like, I think overpacking for Omaha is like just part of the business. What did you, I'll give you my two things I overpacked. Brought my glove, never used it. Brought my baseball glove, never used it. It was fun to carry around the airport though. And made me feel like I was 16. And then way too many golf shirts. I didn't wear golf shirts. I wore t-shirts. Fitzy, what did you overpack? Did you not overpack?
Maybe you should mix in a little professionalism, Coach. Ever think of that?
I'll consider it. Oh, it's considered. I'm not doing that. Go ahead.
That's fine. I packed pretty well. You always have to be a little. I also had too many golf shirts, but it's better safe than sorry. I think I crushed my pack this year overall. I give myself a solid A.
Pack crushed.
Solid A.
Joe, what say you?
I definitely overpacked on button-up shirts because it was just so hot that I went pretty much straight up golf shirt the entire time. And thankfully I had enough, but I had a few like button-up shirts, and when you go with those, you kind of have to go undershirt underneath it, and it just felt like too much. And so I it was an overpack that only happened because of the weather, I think I'd like to say, but it was an overpack nonetheless. I did, by the way, that was a Runes, we missed you out at Rosenblatt that day playing catch out on that field. Was a pretty cool experience. So perhaps next year.
Yep. I had two new goals this year for Omaha. One was to do the Bob Carey pedestrian bridge. Didn't do it. So that goal will roll over into next year. I did go to Stadium View though. And I went by myself, which was #loser. But I almost didn't get there, and that was cool. I bought a 1992 program from Piv and his peeps there, which was my senior year in college, and Mark Wasikowski played in that College World Series, as did Phil Nevin, as did Steve Rodriguez, and so. But I'll tell you, like driving up 13th Street. And then seeing the hill where Rosenblatt sat, I did have an emotional reaction to that. Like it grabbed me. It was really, and it made me miss Rosenblatt again. But man, I had forgotten that experience as a college baseball person when you drive up 13th and then there's that hill where the stadium sat. Man, it was magical.
It's still too raw for me, Coach. Still haven't been back. It's only been 15 years, though. I'm sure I'll get over it at some point.
Oh, that's great. All right, boys, let's jump in here. So here's the theme for today's podcast. The theme is time capsule. So we are, like, you can even hear us doing this, like we are rapidly closing the books on the 2025 season, and then like heading into off-season mode with the draft and transfer portal and coaching carousel, et cetera, et cetera. The fall will happen, because the draft happens later. Fall ball really sneaks up on you. So our good friends Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman at Cespedes Family Barbacast, they have a cool thing they did last year on their podcast where they had a time capsule, they called it, where you can take, now they did it in a very clever, creative way. We're going to do meat and potatoes for us, where you could take things from the previous season and put them in a time capsule. And that's what I want to do. I always worry that we forget really fun, cool things that happened in our season because we just end up advancing into the next season so fast. So I've got some topic areas for us, and I'll throw some stuff out there and then have you guys comment, and we'll but again, what we're trying to do is file some things away from this awesome season that we had that we don't want to forget. So category 1, I called it West Coast Renaissance. And, as someone who coached in the Pac-10, like having 3 West Coast teams in Omaha blew me away. Arizona, Oregon State, and UCLA was so awesome. Hey, I'm going to take a shot at the Big Ten right now. The West Coast came in and ate the Big Ten's lunch. And I know if you're a legacy Big Ten person, that's going to hurt to hear. It's going to hurt your ears. But, man, it is what it is. Like, facts are stubborn, right? And, like, it's I thought the Supers were wild. Like, Arizona, the way they competed against a really good North Carolina team. Oregon State's performance in the postseason was really impressive. And then UCLA was just awesome. So, go where you want there, guys. But I thought the West Coast Renaissance was really fun.
Yeah, it was great to see 3 of the old Pac-12 schools in Omaha. I feel like we got to shout. We got to call out Oregon though, because some of us were all in on the Ducks, and they laid an egg, if you will, laid a big fat stinky egg in the postseason. Be better, Ducks. I was expecting more from you, but otherwise, I mean, they had a good year. Obviously, they had a very good year overall. You're right about the Big Ten. I mean, 4 new West Coast teams in that league, and they finished in the top 5. All of them finished in the top 5 in the standings. And USC is back in regionals. All it took for USC to get back in regionals is to go beat up on some Midwest teams, apparently. I mean, that is wild, because we've talked a lot about the Big Ten being kind of a solid baseball league, but it was hard to really kind of gauge it. And now you kind of get a better sense of where it stands, and it's not real pretty. I mean, to have all these new teams come in and just walk all over them. You're right. It's startling, but I mean, again, it's also a reminder that the Pac-12 was one of the Power 4, and then the Big Ten was clearly a step behind until the dissolution of the Pac-12. And so I think that divide was borne out. I mean, that was the correct divide. There was 4 power conferences, with the Pac-12 being one of those 4, and the Big Ten was just never really in that category.
I'll give a special shout out here to the Big West in this conversation. Now, they obviously didn't get a team to Omaha, but you had kind of a classically good UC Irvine team, and Cal Poly got into a regional, and then it was a disappointing season for Santa Barbara, but they were obviously extremely talented and in a different universe. They're in the mix to be in a regional. Hawaii had its best year in quite a while, and kind of sneakily, Fullerton finished 3rd in the league and was 19-11 in the conference, and I guess we can look at that either way. Like, is it an indictment of the Big West they finished 3rd, or were they actually pretty decent? But regardless, I think you throw them in the mix there as well, that it was a solid year for the Big West. We know that the glory days of that conference are probably not coming back, but there's no reason why it can't be this version of the Big West moving forward.
Love it. And by the way, a lesson for the young kids out there, Fitzy just dropped the word dissolution on Joe, just dropped it right in his face. Didn't taunt him, didn't bat flip, just got on with his commentary, and just, not all domination has to be flamboyant or celebratory. Just throwing that out there. Well done, Coach Fitt. Item number 2, but it's a long podcast, long ball game, plenty of time for Joe to make up ground. Coaching feel goods, coaching good vibes, like Danny Hall winning the ACC, Georgia Tech winning the ACC regular season. That filled my heart. Like, that was so cool. Seeing Skip Bertman in Omaha when LSU won their 8th national title, knowing that he and his wife, who passed this year, were really the architects of that. Sandy and Skip Bertman built that program. You guys know USC Upstate was one of my favorite stories. First year head coach Kane Sweeney, they go to the NCAA tournament. Their 4-hole hitter is his younger brother, Johnny Sweeney, who I think had like 80 RBIs, had like a monster year. And then Kane's 3-year-old son, Cash, his favorite player, his uncle Johnny. Like, just love that whole deal.
Very Stevenson family-esque.
Yes.
I can't remember another time where you've had a guy coaching his younger brother, except for Gene and Phil.
So cool. Let me give you guys 4 more coaching names that were cool. Dan Fitzgerald and Kansas had an awesome year. Steve Sabins wins the Big 12 in his first year as the head coach at West Virginia. And two pitching coaches, Matt Williams and Nate Yeske, had been fairly famous pitching coaches in our game, and then had kind of like not, maybe, people lose their shine, right? Like you're famous, then you're not famous. It was so cool to see Matt Williams and Nate Yeske like just fully just awesome at being pitching coaches like we always have known they've been. So go ahead, Fitzy. Any thoughts there?
There's a lot of good ones there. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to start for some reason with the Big 12 because I think you're right. Like, see Kansas take the step forward, the leap forward that they took under Dan Fitzgerald. That program has been trending in a positive direction, but boy, what a big leap forward. Very impressive. And then to see Steve Sabins, a guy that we always he was in that can't miss future star, I kind of thought of him like I thought of Rob Vaughn when he was an assistant, like this guy is going to be a guy. It's a no brainer. And he got his chance and just kind of carried on, and built upon even, everything that Randy Mazey had done when Sabins was with him. And it's neat to see that continuing. So I just think those are 2 cool programs that are not traditional powers, that are not located in hotbeds. It's places that are not easy to win, West Virginia and Kansas. I mean, you think about 15 years ago and where those programs, well, especially where West Virginia, it's kind of what I'm thinking of, where they were, as just a kind of a downtrodden member of the Big East that couldn't even sniff a regional. And now they're like this regular power at the top of the Big 12 that hosts regionals and wins regionals. And that's an incredible story, if you ask me. And so that's he was part of that for a long time, as Macy's right-hand man. And now he's running the show and keeping it going. So I think that's cool.
Well, Runes did ask you, Aaron, so it's a good thing you answered. You said, an incredible story if you ask me, and he did. So,
in fact,
I think the pitching, like the pitching coach piece, Runes, I think is a good shout out by you, because it's never been tougher to be a pitching coach in college baseball, because gone are the days when it's like you could do this a little bit on the margins, but gone are the days when it's like, hey, we've got this really talented, pretty raw freshman, and the idea is by the time he's a junior, he's a real guy for us. Like, you don't really get that 3-year runway anymore with guys. You're, especially at the higher levels of the game, you're working with a lot of transfers. You're working with, a lot of guys who blue chip recruits who were probably promised, certain things about, how much mound time they'd see or the opportunities they would have. And oh, by the way, you might be paying them a little NIL money, and that applies different pressure, right? If you're paying this dude real money, like, you got to try to get something out of him right now. And so the idea, and obviously, LSU is in that field a little more than Coastal was. Coastal's pitching staff, a little more homegrown, but I think the point stands, especially given this was Matt Williams' first year with that pitching staff. So you have to be good as a pitching coach every single year to get the most out of your pitching staff. The long-term project piece of it still exists in some ways, but not nearly to the extent it used to. So really impressive those guys were able to work with what they had and get so much out of it.
Love it. So a third theme, boys, is the super. Oh, by the way, Joe, Fitzy, dissolution was his kind of opener, took an early lead, just quietly threw a downtrodden in there, like just consistent traffic inning after inning. Like, I think your best course of action, Joe, is run his pitch count up and try to get in the bullpen.
That's right.
I think Fitzy's got his best stuff today. Really feeling that.
Hey, before we move on from this topic, shout out Danny Hall. I don't know if we've talked. I'm sure we have talked about Danny and his retirement. I know we have on the show, but just one more salute. I had a nice text exchange with him the other day and realized again, just, we're going to miss this guy. Just a real class act that has been a pleasure to kind of work with over the last couple of decades. And, nice to see them go out with a strong season. That was a fun team this year.
Amen. Well said.
Agreed.
Topic number 3, super fun Omaha. Like, we had no repeat teams. We had 8 new teams. That was amazing. We didn't have the 4 and 4, right? We had 7 different conference affiliations, or, I guess we'll call independent a conference. That was awesome. The Arkansas LSU game, the elimination game, was just bonkers. Like, one we'll never forget. Gage Wood throwing the third hitter in CWS history. Louisville's comebacks, like, one of the moments I'll never forget is Alex Alicea in that game when they eliminated Oregon State, I believe. He's laying on top of home plate after he scores the game-winning run because he had played really awful defense for his standards, and he had made a huge error in that game. And for him to get a chance to redeem himself, it was like all the feels. And again, good for you, Alex Alicea, to have the fortitude to come back. But go ahead, Fitzy. Like, I just thought it was a super fun Omaha.
Yeah, and just real quickly, kind of building on that point, I'm reminded of Joe and I were in Durham for the game 3 of the Murray State Duke Super Regional, and Murray State thought they had the game won, and I was struck by the image of their third baseman Carson Garner. They're kind of as a 5th-year senior, I think, a guy who'd been there a while, at least maybe just a 4th-year senior, but not a transfer. A guy who'd been through the program the whole way, and like kind of in disbelief, face down at his position, face buried in the turf as they start their celebration. And then, hold on, wait a minute, we got to do a replay review, and everybody's got to get up and like recollect themselves. This guy had been overcome, and a lot of them, I'm sure, were feeling similarly by the emotion of it. And then, no big deal. I mean, you just go right back out there and get the next out. Incredible kind of turn of events there, but just kind of reminds you of just how emotional all this stuff is for these kids. It's not just a transactional affair here. I mean, I know we have a tendency now to I think a lot of people feel cynical about college sports these days in the NIL era and the portal era, etc. This stuff is still powerful, like emotional and real. And so I think that's important to remember. Just on Omaha, before we've talked plenty about LSU the other day. Obviously that was, LSU and Coastal were the biggest stories, but the Gage Wood thing, I mean, not only is it the 3rd no-hitter in College World Series history, it's the 1st in the metal bat era, which
wow.
I just think, you can make a pretty strong case that this is the greatest Omaha pitching performance of all time. Because
take that, Steve Arlen.
Yeah, eat it, Arlen. Doing it against wood, a little bit different than doing it against metal. I know the wind is the wind, and they didn't really have to deal with that element of it, 50 years ago. But nonetheless, I mean, you strike out 19 guys. I mean, that was insane, and again, that Murray State team could really hit. I know they didn't hit against Gage Wood, but they could really hit. And they prided themselves on being tough outs. We wrote a lot about that, in the Super. To do that against that offense, wow. 19 strikeout, no hitter. I mean, hit one guy, the only base runner. Was it the 8th inning? It was a breaking ball, I think, the back foot breaking ball. And it's like, that was, of course, the first thing that he mentioned in the post-game interview with Danny Wesselman was, shouldn't have hit that guy. Yeah. Which I just thought that was iconic.
So great. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, speaking of iconic things, I know we'll talk a little bit more about this, but an all-time line by Kevin Schnall in the end that I will be using for the rest of my life, which is that I should not be held accountable for another man's athleticism.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a Hall of Fame level line. I'm gonna remember that forever and use that line forever. But I'm with you guys generally in terms of Omaha. Like, having the variety back was really nice. There was a lot of hand wringing about the 4 ACC, 4 SEC format of the 2024 series. And is this just going to be what it is from now on? And I think this season was a reminder of a couple things. One is just that year when it was 4-4, that's the unicorn year, because the math is almost never going to work out to where you have 4. Like, the super regional matchups have to go a certain way. And you've got to not have some of the eating your own situation along the way in the conference. And I think it was also a nice not change of pace, but just a nice reminder that teams like Coastal Carolina, very proud program in a conference that is very good, but is not one of the very moneyed power conferences in college sports, you can still compete and could win a national title. Like, I think in hindsight, it feels like LSU like controlled that CWS finals, and maybe they did to some degree, but they won 2 games by 3 total runs. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say that they weren't in that series. A couple swings and that thing goes a little bit differently. So it's just a nice reminder that like this is still a sport where you don't have to play football in front of 100,000 fans every Saturday in order to be good at college baseball, which is kind of what it has felt like, in the last several years.
Well said. And back to your point about, the competitiveness of that series. I mean, let's not forget Coastal. What did they have? I mean, it was 5 walks, 2 HBPs, 3 hits. I mean, that's 10 base runners they had. They had traffic in 8 of 9 innings against Cade Anderson. And Cade Anderson's great. And that's why he was able to navigate that. But they had chances. And, you're right. It's a hit here, hit there, and you win 2-1, and then who knows how the rest of the series goes. So it was certainly competitive. I mean, it was 1-0 that game, and that's kind of felt like the swing game of the series. Nothing groundbreaking with that takeaway, but like if Coastal wins that game, which again, 1 or 2 hits, a bloop, and a bloop, and then it's a different story. So it was fun. I thought it was a great series overall. I thought it was compelling drama. I thought the best team won. The team that I said all year long was the best team. Apologies to Virginia.
Hold that thought. Don't go to. That's a topic coming up.
Okay,
Virginia.
We'll stop there.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to say this: like the 2024 College World Series was awesome for different reasons. Like the 4-4, even though it was scary, it was unique and exciting. And I just think Tennessee's national title as the culmination of a 4-year run of dominance, that made for a very fun World Series. By the way, third inning recap. Fitzy dropped in the word transactional, which I know is not elite, but that's a 4-syllable like first pitch strike. Joe, I like you fighting back with the verb moneyed. I thought that was excellent. So, the Joe's starting to try and climb their way back into this ball game.
Yeah, one hit at a time, 1 inning at a time.
Yeah, win the next pitch.
That's an adjective, Coach. I got to correct that.
Oh, dang it. Yeah. Could it be a verb? No, it's an adjective. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. -10. Coach Rooney racking up the negative points.
I'll give you points for this, though, before we move forward. Rude shared a screenshot of his remarkable tablet for this agenda of this show. And you know what? Your handwriting is like a solid 50. It's legible. I mean, it probably plays up given the average sports writer handwriting. I mean, I've got like a 20. Maybe a 30. It's weak. Joe, also not great.
Not good. Mine's definitely a 20.
But like I can actually read everything you got on here. I like the all caps style that you use. It's
with some flair. You can read it, but it has flair.
That's right. Yeah. So it maybe 55. It's solid. Well done.
Thank you for that. Ironically, the next topic is things to work on for college baseball. Just want to jot something. I wrote down Angel Campos. I'm not just trying to hammer Angel Campos, but he was the culprit. Here's the point. Angel Campos was my reminder. We now have 4 straight NCAA tournaments with a high-profile ejection. That has got to stop. And that this becomes like a political argument. I'm over the coaches and players have to do better. I'm over that. We have to do better. That's my stance on that. We, the sport of college baseball, have to do better. No other sport. Tom Brady never got ejected from a Super Bowl. Nick Saban never got ejected from a college football playoff. Michael Jordan never got ejected from an NBA Finals that I know of. Maybe he did. Anyway.
Why do you hate the rules, Coach? There are rules. It says right there in the book. Why don't you just follow the rules?
Yes, so over. By the way, I wrote as a side note, we also had that incident in the tournament where Carson Ligon just lost it and is screaming bloody murder into the Florida State dugout, and Link Jarrett is the person who got ejected. And so again, that has to go into this laboratory of how do we fix this? I wrote down Field of 68, again, Southeastern Louisiana, Troy, Connecticut, Virginia were our first 4 out. I'm thinking about UTRGV, Xavier, man, we just keep leaving good teams out. I think reasonable minds can disagree here, but I'm just a huge proponent of the Field of 68. I don't think this is a problem, the third part, but home runs were interesting this year. Home runs were down in the regular season. We didn't have anybody even really threaten 30 home runs this year, where last year, I believe we had 5 players with 30 home runs or more. Shout out Boston Smith. We'll come to you in a second. And then home runs were way up in the regionals. It was the second highest home runs in regionals and super regionals ever. and then they were way down in the College World Series. So not like I'm not saying that's something we need to work on. I just put it in this category. Just a very interesting circumstance that occurred. Go ahead, Fitzy, your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, real quick on the umpiring thing, because I got a part of it is I think we do need to make sure we have the right umpires in this situation. And yes, part of it is a point of emphasis, but like, I got a text from another umpire this week who said Angel Campos has always had too much ego and too thin-skinned. Like, your peers are saying this. Like, that guy should not be in that position. The guy fires me up. It just that was an embarrassment. I mean, that was an embarrassment. However, all that said, the flip side of it is, our guy Angel, he injected some adrenaline into the part of that game, and that's all anyone wants to talk about. So maybe we need him on that wall. Maybe you can't handle the truth, Coach Rooney, is what I'm going for. Maybe All America actually wants is a good ump show, because my mentions and whatever interactions on Twitter were never as high as they were when people were complaining about Angel Campos. So people, listen, America loves a villain. Yeah. So maybe that's the guy we need in the middle of the action. Bring back Angel. I've come around on this.
I like it. Joe?
Yeah, just quickly on that, a couple things. Like, one is, and I won't name any other names. I mean, Angel Campos' name has been out there. Like, also Eric Bakich named Billy Van Raphorst on a radio show. So, but I won't name any other names. But there are consistently umpires at this stage that we're told by reputable sources do not score well. Why are they there? Like, I get that. Look, I'm not naive to the fact that I am sure there is a relationship component of this. And I'm not even saying that totally has to go away, right? Umpire who's been doing it a long time and is always kind of maybe on the cusp and never quite gets there. You throw that guy a bone, right? But like, why are we bringing up umpires that have not scored well throughout the season? That should be a reward for having done a good job during the season. So why are we not doing that? That's my kind of thing there. I also wonder, I got asked on a radio show, and I think it's interesting. Maybe we should ask softball how they make it work, because if you've ever watched a college softball game, I mean, if anything, there's more chirping, but that's kind of part of the culture of softball, is the chanting and so is it just a cultural thing? Is it a gender dynamics thing? I don't know. But like, I got asked on the radio show, like, why does softball not have this problem? And it's basically the same game on a shrunken field, and there's a lot more chirping, and they don't have that problem. And, so I don't know enough about softball to answer that, but it is an interesting thought experiment. And so I'd be interested to have a softball expert kind of educate us on, why there is that difference there. So there's also that. I'll be watching the home runs runes. Like, I feel like, I was early on kind of noticing during the season, like the ball just isn't jumping like it was. So I feel like I hammered it a lot this season, but it was such a stark difference. I mean, we all remember what the 24 season was like, when it was like, if anybody in the SEC barrels a ball, it's got a chance to go. And this year was just different. So that's something I'm going to be watching pretty closely next year, because at this point, and I'm okay with it, I don't think, we, especially because of the roller coaster nature of it, we definitely don't need to start tinkering with things, but I will be watching next year to see which direction this heads, and if this is the 1 year blip, or if we're now on a little bit of a trend downward after a couple of really offensive years.
My theory, again, I go back to the balls. I've thought all along it was something about the balls. The supply, was different after COVID. I don't know what it was, but I mean, home runs are down in the big leagues too, aren't they? Notwithstanding Cal Raleigh. I don't know if that's
right. Can't speak to that.
I thought I recalled Jake Mintz telling me that home runs.
Yeah, I was going to say, somebody text Jake Mintz, we'll get the answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, so I don't know what the answer is there. It's just, I thought we had a better balanced game this year. I appreciated that. I like it when things aren't insane, or anytime you find barrel, it goes out. I'm with you on that. One last thing, just kind of putting a button on the umpire stuff. I think we can all agree that direct actual taunting is not what we need. And other sports agree as well. You get teed up and maybe ejected in basketball. You get, 15-yard penalty in football for taunting. Like, their actual taunting is one thing. If we're yelling, looking directly in the dugout and screaming at them and cursing at them. And, you know who you are. There've been plenty of cases of that this year. Some of them have been penalized. Some of them have not, but we don't need that. But like beyond that, can we chill out? I mean, like, can we just relax a little bit with trying to put a really clamp down on any kind of emotion or any kind of, people arguing? Like I like Joe's theory the other day. They want to chirp, let them chirp. Like your job as the umpire shouldn't be to engage with that. I mean, I know the culture of baseball is different than the culture of basketball and football. People want to compare that stuff all the time, but maybe we just need to change that. I mean, like, who cares if they want to complain? They still got no power ultimately. I mean, it's just complaining. It's just words. I think taunting is one thing. Everything else falls into a different bucket for me.
Yep. I just think we need smart people thinking about this because, again, to repeat the stat, 4 high-profile ejections in 4 straight NCAA tournaments. I'm not saying that number should be 0, but it can't be 4. Like, it can't be like, okay, I'm going into this year's NCAA tournament wondering who's going to be the star player or critical coach who gets ejected. By the way, a Fitzy, a few good men reference, well done. Just continuing to add on the lead. And then a great reminder, Kevin Schnall's press conferences were #bangers all postseason. Yeah, that was amazing. Boys, number 5.
I came all the way back around on his press conferences, by the way, where like at first I was kind of like, all right, like, come on, the whole, just the whole chip on. And now I've come all the way back around where if this is performance art, it is the highest version of performance art I've ever seen.
Joe's in the first row with popcorn.
Yeah, there's some DGAF there that calling out. I mean, obviously, like calling out Sully. Like you don't see other coaches call each other out in pressers before. Like think however you want about that, but it was interesting.
Yes, boys. Item number 5: preseason predictions in shambles. Like A&M and Virginia were 1 and 2, and it was unanimous. Anybody with a brain had A&M and Virginia 1 and 2. Neither team qualified for the tournament. And then I put the Vols in here. I just thought Tennessee was fascinating because they did lose a lot from their national title team. They looked like the best team in the country by a wide margin in the preseason. They were just mauling people. And then, and I was wrong about their transfers. Like I thought Liam Doyle was fine as a transfer. He was like a top 10 pick. I thought Andrew Fisher was fine. He was arguably the best hitter in America, like hit, just pure hitter. And then, Gavin Keelan went off when he was healthy. And then, but also Tennessee went 1 and 4 in home SEC series. 1 and 4. I believe they lost 6 of their last 7 SEC series. Like I'm doubting myself because it doesn't even feel possible that happened. But anyway, Tennessee of course, they were a super regional team. Like their bad year is super regional. But they were fascinating. So Fitzy, wherever you want to go there.
Yeah, it was a weird year for this stuff. Again, for A&M to not even make regionals and A&M and Virginia to not even make regionals as the consensus top 2 teams. I mean, that's just jarring, stunning. And I get, in each case, I mean, I think A&M I think the Grahovic injury right out of the chute just kind of threw them for a bit of a loop. But still, I mean, they had enough talent. Like it feels like they should have been good enough. And, they didn't really quit. Like they kept fighting and they actually were back in position to be in a regional. And then they just get swept by Missouri, like right at the end of the year. And it's like, what in the world? Like it's right there for you, and you get swept by the worst team in the league by a wide margin. And it's just, okay. I mean, I don't have an explanation for that. That was just the most bizarre thing of the entire season for me. It's like this team that like preseason number 1 that fought and scrapped and clawed was back finally in position to make a regional. And then whoops, like how does that happen? That was just bizarre stuff. Virginia, I still can't quite figure that out. I mean, part of it is maybe they just didn't schedule well because their ACC record was fine. And their RPI was what killed them. So maybe schedule better. But like, because what did they finish? 16 and 11 in the ACC?
I think so.
And they don't make a regional. Like clearly they didn't stink. I mean, they went 16 and 11, 5 games above 500 in the ACC. Obviously not being able to play the Florida State series because of the tragedy on campus there hurt them a little bit, you would think, probably with the RPI, but also just their non-conference schedule undermined them. B, the Evan Blanco thing, I mean, it just, he was hurt. early in the year or just whatever, slow to start, whatever it was. And it was just never really himself. And that was a key part of it. I mean, I guess we saw from LSU, we saw from Coastal the value of having a true bell cow at the top of that rotation for you. Somebody you can really lean on. And of course, LSU and Coastal had multiple bell cows, but you need one at least, I think. I mean, I guess there are ways to do it otherwise. If you're Duke and you mix and match or whoever, like there are ways to win still without that true ace. But when you're counting on that guy and then it just doesn't materialize, and he was just never quite the guy he was last year, and that was a big part of, I think, expectations for that team was, oh, they also have a real ace. So anyway, I think those are the factors for Virginia. I still think that they would have been dangerous had they gotten into the postseason, but maybe not. I mean, also Matt Augustine, their closer, was another key piece that he's just hurt the whole year, never pitched, and that was, the two bookends of your staff when we did the rankings. Neither of them really, not having either of those guys at their best was a major factor for them.
I think on the first of all, on the Virginia thing, you mentioned the schedule, like the three best teams they played, because they played 2 tournaments early. The 3 best teams they played were Michigan, Oregon State, and Oklahoma, and they lost all 3 of them. Like, I mean, that was a part of it. On Tennessee, well, and I guess A&M as well. Like, I think we're just learning, and we fall into it every year, and we will continue to fall into it. Like, because I just think this is the nature of like trying to prognosticate this stuff. We can only use the information we have, and we just look at the rosters and the talent and all that kind of stuff. But especially in the SEC, it is just so like 1 or 2 things going wrong can just totally bury you. And going back to like right after the pandemic, Mississippi State's been to Omaha a bunch in recent years, and they win a national title. And it's like, hey, with that new ballpark, and now they've won a national title, and, steady hand of Chris Lemonis, all that stuff, they're just a rocket ship. Well, we saw how that went. Ole Miss the next year wins a national title. Next year comes back with a top 5 roster. And we think, hey, this, like much like Mississippi State, this team is just on this rocket ship trajectory. Not quite. Even LSU wins a title in 23. They obviously have some superstars in that roster, but they come back with another strong team. And while they did make the postseason, they went 13-17 in the SEC in the regular season. Now you look at Tennessee coming off a national title. They still made it to a super, but A&M's disappointment. Like, we just, you can't ever assume that because we saw it one year, that's just going to be what happens forever when it comes to these SEC teams. I think in maybe some other leagues, you could potentially say that, but not in that one. And the issue is, it seems like there's going to be one team like this pretty much every year in the SEC, but you just can't predict which one it's going to be. And that's the hard part about it. But it was just another reminder, like you look at the last 5 seasons, and that the year to year for teams that have made deep postseason runs is not necessarily what you would think it is. And maybe that's because, I mean, frankly, if we're just going to just real quick, like rationale on that, like maybe it's just that, hey, if you spend the entire month of June playing in the postseason all the way through to almost July, you're kind of missing out on the transfer portal, and maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Like, that's just a snap judgment here, but it is interesting.
Yep. By the way, great call out Fitzy on Mizzou. Like, that's a historic season. I'm not picking on Carrick Jackson. I'm thrilled that Missouri has decided to stay with Carrick, like give him more time and hopefully give him more resources. But, for Mizzou to go 3-27 in the SEC, which is historic, but the 3 wins were against the preseason number 1. That just was like
on
almost
the road.
On the road, right? Like the perfect book cover to a totally bonkers season. Like, just bonkers. Incredible. Hey, let me group 2 here in the interest of time. So another topic I had was MLB. Like, college players are just ripping through the minor leagues right now. Like, this is crazy. From last year's draft, Chase Burns, Christian Moore, Jack Caglione, Nick Kurtz like hitting in the middle of the A's order, and Cam Smith has been in the big leagues the entire season. Those kids played college baseball 12 months ago. 2 years ago, like Paul Skeens played college baseball 2 years ago. Wyatt Langford, Nolan Shanuel is establishing himself as a big leaguer. Jacob Wilson of Grand Canyon is going to be an all-star. Like, he's not in the big leagues treading water. He's going to be possibly the starting shortstop for the American League. A second topic would be redemption programs. Like, redemption for not Texas, the program, but for Jim Schlossnagle. Obviously, it was a whole deal when he went from A&M to Texas, and for Texas to win the SEC regular season in his first season, I thought that was cool for Schloss, who, it was self-inflicted in a lot of ways, but he did wear it in the offseason. Vandy, I thought Vandy finishing as the top overall seed for the NCAA tournament, even though they got clipped in regionals, I thought that was redemptive for them, where there was a lot of criticism on just like the general MO of their program, like had time passed them by. And, they were the number one overall seed. Like, clearly that's not the case. Oregon State getting dropped by conference realignment, getting to Omaha. Louisville and UCLA were kind of parallel programs that we thought college baseball kind of left them behind. They weren't portal-y enough, too high school recruit driven. And then ECU, I thought that was cool to see East Carolina have a tough year for the first time in a long time, but find their way through the American tournament and then be awesome in the NCAA tournament. They were great in the Conway Regional. So Fitzy, wherever you want to go with those two topics.
I guess the ones that jump out to me are Louisville and UCLA, because you're right. It did feel like those were, two of the great programs of the previous decade, and Oregon State as well. I'm going to lump those three together. Three of the great programs of the previous decade. And none of them had been to Omaha since Louisville in 19, right? So like this decade, they were 0 for until this year. And so for all three of them to break through, I mean, it kind of contributed to that feeling of this being a bit of a throwback World Series, with the three West Coast teams being part of it. And with these teams that, we were, I mean, it's funny. I think I told this story already, but we ran into Dan McDonnell on the street before the series started, and he was walking back from the coaches meeting. And he said, yeah, John Savage and I looked at each other and we're like, man, like we didn't know if we were going to get back here,
Right.
And it's just like, for these great coaches, these proud coaches at these great proud programs, to have to overcome that kind of self-doubt just shows you how hard it is. I mean, I was trying to do my early aid for Omaha for next year, and I'm thinking ahead, like, all right, there's all these programs that are, like Southern Miss is good every year and East Carolina is good every year. Like, should I throw them in my 8 for Omaha next year? And it's like, I mean, they could get there, but like Southern Miss hadn't been since 09, right? I mean, like, for all the great teams, they're 20 years of excellence. East Carolina's still never been. Like, it's hard to get to Omaha is where I'm coming down on this. It's hard. And I know some teams make it look routine. I mean, it's insane how many times Florida has been there and Arkansas keeps going back. And, obviously Vandy's had plenty of runs. North Carolina's had a bunch of runs, but like, it's hard. And when you haven't been in a while, it feels like it gets harder and harder. And so, shout out to those programs, Louisville, UCLA, Oregon State, for kind of staying the course and continuing to build their way. A lot of the homegrown cores there. And yeah, you certainly, I mean, portal guys. I mean, Ivar Arquette, kind of stands out, and Louisville, some of their portal guys did well, but like, it's a lot of homegrown cores for those three programs. And I like to see that you can still win that way.
Yeah. I think relatedly, I think this is part and parcel with when we talk about how much we liked the Omaha field, which is that I think if you rewind the clock to back in 2022 and 2023, as the sands of college athletics were really shifting, and the teams that really went all in on stuff like the portal and NIL, like, had this first mover advantage, which I think led to a situation where we kind of thought that, okay, this just is what it is. There are a handful of teams that are just going to run the sport and dominate in this way because they're so far ahead. But, as time has gone on, guys, like, they haven't totally changed their ways, but one way or another, John Savage and Dan McDonnell and others, JD Arteaga at Miami, like with the team that the run they made late in the season, those guys adjusted to the new reality, and they didn't all do it the same way. It's not like all those teams are out there taking 15 transfers every year, but they adjusted and found a way to make it work. And it took them some time there, but they got it done. And I think you're seeing that when you look at the big picture of college baseball, that yes, there might've been some first mover advantages with the teams that really went whole hog on the portal and whatever else. But now I think the rest of the country is catching up a little bit. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I say that in terms of, no one is getting caught flat-footed by having their players go in the portal anymore. Like, that was a thing for a couple of off seasons, like schools that just assumed their guys were going to come back, and they got in the portal and they were shocked and upset and, whatever else. And rather than continue to fuss about it, they just figured it out. And so that's been huge, I think, just for the sport in general, that people have now, I think generally speaking, most places have their feet under them and understand the assignment, if you will.
Look at that. Joe, Fitzy, be careful. Like, I was just going to say, part and parcel and first mover advantage, those are just quality at bats. Those are not like electric in any way, but just like good at bats. And then Joe drops understood the assignment on us, which is, it's a phrase that's tiring out, I think, but still solid, still plays today. That's right. Yeah, that's a good ending for the Joes. Boys, the next two topics, we'll go one at a time, but this may be a little redundant. I got fun teams. I'm very NCAA tournament centric here. Murray State was so fun. I will never forget them in that Game 7 versus Ole Miss. They had 19 hits by the sixth inning. 19 hits against an SEC team in the sixth inning of a game.
And they had 19 strikeouts and 0 hits against Gage Wood.
What happened? Little Rock had a lead in like the fifth inning against LSU. Like, Little Rock was a fun team. They were 8-16 in the OVC. Coastal was so fun. Like, I know we were talking about Coastal, but like to break the planet Earth record for hit by pitch in a season, and then also have an SEC pitching staff. They were so fun. UTSA was a very fun team this year. Wright State was super fun in the NCAA tournament. Utah Valley showed great. Columbia won their first game, and then St. Mary's. I grouped those teams because we had 4 number 4 seeds win their opening game of the NCAA tournament. If you had told me that before the tournament, I would say there was a 0.1% chance of that happening. Like, there's no way that can happen, and it did. So go wherever you want on fun teams, Fitzy.
That UTSA team was one that I really enjoyed, and it was kind of incredible to see them go into Austin and win that regional comfortably. It didn't even seem like they had to sweat that much. They were just in control, and against the number 2 national seed, in their house, and, all the big brother stuff that goes along with being University of Texas, against one of the other, schools in the state system. And they were just up for the fight. And that was kind of, I think, in character with who they were. They were really good all year long. And you mentioned fun. Mason Lytle is one of the most fun players in the country for my money. Love watching that dude. Just kind of your undersized veteran guy who just does everything. Just a winner. And Jordan Ballin. Don't call me Bayin, Jordan Ballin. Just a little scrappy second baseman who just like kind of exemplifies a lot of the stuff that made them successful, which is they just wear you down. Which is why I was so impressed with the way UCLA handled them in the Super, because I thought they were going to be a handful for everybody, because they were a handful all year long. But fun team, and certainly on the mound as well. Orlovsky and everybody in that staff, Braylon Owens, and it was a good group, and enjoyed watching that run.
All of the above. I would also throw Kansas in there. I had a lot of fun with watching them this year, because you kind of knew there was like a limit on what they were going to be able to accomplish, but like it was just such an interesting accumulation of players, right? From all over the place. You had D1 transfers, you had a lot of JC guys, you had lower division transfers, and you had some real talent there, right? Especially in the rotation, like there were some real guys there that have pro futures in front of them. And I was able to get out to Hoagland Ballpark this year for the K-State series, and that stadium, saw crowds they'd never seen before, and consistently were drawing crowds they'd never seen before. And I think that's also just a bigger picture thing with the sport this year, where I don't know about you guys, but it feels like over the last week or so, it's been a barrage of posts on team accounts of like attendance records for the year. So it just seems like it was a great year for attendance across college baseball, but Kansas was certainly a part of that. And I don't know if we mentioned this, Runes, in the send-off for coaches, but I also thought it was, quietly, Creighton had a great year last year with Ed Service and kind of the transition year to Mark Kingston. And it made me think about, UConn has had a little bit of, it's kind of like UConn and then everyone else in the Big East. And sometimes Xavier's good enough, sometimes Creighton's good enough to challenge them. But you just wonder, Mark Kingston does have a long history of winning. And if you take out the couple of tough years at South Carolina, like you go back to his days at South Florida and Illinois State, like he has a long track record of winning, especially when he has Billy Mole as his pitching coach. And they have that. And so I do think there's a scenario where like we are going to see a little bit of a fully weaponized Creighton moving forward under this new leadership. So I'm kind of excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah, well said. That's a great call for Coach Service. I didn't put Cal Poly in my fun teams, but I want to mention them too. Like Larry Lee, that was super cool to see them not only make an NCAA tournament, but thrive. And that, like Cal Poly and Western Kentucky were fun teams to me this year because they were like on that. They were going down that like torturous bubble team boulevard, right? Like they were just riding down that road. We see teams do that every year. And every year those teams just crash and burn. Like it's just ugly. And Western Kentucky and Cal Poly were the two teams that just said, we will win the conference tournament and you can take your, heartbreak. Thank you.
Love that. It's a great call out. And I'll just piggyback on it because one of my favorite trips this year was I went out to SLO for the Irvine Poly series, and people were excited. I think it was sold out all weekend. It was great crowds, great atmosphere, two real good teams, and just going back to our previous point about West Coast baseball renaissance, two very fun teams. I enjoyed that trip quite a bit.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but like amongst all the talk of West Coast teams, their facilities are behind, like yada yada. Like Cal Poly actually has a pretty good setup there, right?
Yeah, it's a great setup. Yeah. I mean, it's a great backdrop, but they also have, it's all the facilities are nice. The fan amenities are good, and the development stuff, the coaches' offices, it's good.
Gotta love it. Boys, I want to put these two categories together. So I'm going to one topic is it's the year of the shortstop in college baseball, and then just fun players that we enjoyed. And there will be overlap there. Let's do the shortstops first. Like Iva Arquette was awesome for Oregon State. Vahiva Aloy won the Golden Spikes. Rock Chalowski probably, not probably, he could have won the Golden Spikes, and he was so critical to UCLA. The Lodice cousins, Kyle Lodice at Georgia Tech and Alex Lodice at Florida State. How about Matt King at Arizona State was awesome. Newcomer of the year in the Big 12. Colin Yeaman at Irvine was awesome at shortstop. Like we could go on and on. And then let me bleed that into like fun players. I'm gonna rifle off a large list and you guys go wherever you want. But like Angel Cano of Little Rock was so fun in the Baton Rouge Regional. He's so physical. It looked like Little Rock stole. It looked like they kidnapped an LSU player and put him in a Little Rock uniform, and he played for them all weekend. He was awesome. Graham Kellum of Murray State was unbelievable as their like moment of truth, or just like pitch you out of like a tornado reliever. John Hogart for them was incredible. I think he had 50 extra base hits for the year. Jake Knapp of UNC was so awesome, fifth-year senior. Rick Russell comp. Dustin Mercer of Murray State, Dusty doubles. He had 7 doubles in the regional weekend. Jack Ullman, freshman from Yale, won the ERA total this year. Zane Taylor, a senior from Wilmington, was awesome on the mound, kind of like your sawed-off right-hander who just actually has better arm strength than you think but can really pitch. Cam Allen and Griffin Page, the 2 starters for Wright State. Those 2 kids took the Nashville Regional and just ruined it. Like they just turned it into a food fight in the very best way. Colin Ritchie, I have him down for 5 home runs in the Athens Regional because he hit 4 and he stole 1. And Oklahoma State eliminated Georgia in an incredible game. Gavin Gallagher again in the regional. He was 13 for 18. He does not make outs in regionals apparently. I wrote Dorian Gonzalez of Miami. He was best friends with J.D. Arteaga's son, who passed away tragically a few years ago. And he had an awesome senior year for Miami, who was another resurgent program. Jake Ogden of Miami was an all-time super fun player. He was a Division II player 2 years ago. Teg Davis was a super fun player for me at Louisville because I coached his dad. And even though that makes me feel old, it was like I got to experience what being a grandfather is, I think. And that was really cool. Eddie King Jr. and Jake Monroe of Louisville were really fun players. Derek Curiel of LSU might be my favorite player on that team. Like, I just love the way he plays baseball like such a Southern California player, and I think he'll be a big leaguer. Kyle Johnson of Duke, that was a wild what he did in the regional. Doesn't play at all and then goes 4 for 4 because AJ Grassi has been ejected and suspended. By the way, there's another high-profile ejection that was nonsensical. Tony Pluta, 5'9", aerospace engineering major, wins Stopper of the Year nationally. Roman Martin and Vi Lavu and Rock Chalowski of UCLA, that trifecta of sophomores, those guys were really fun. And a Kansas player, Joe, you reminded me of this. Brady Ballinger, their first baseman at Kansas, like a Sean Casey starter kit, like big personality. He's from Las Vegas. He went to CSN. He was awesome. So, Fitzy, that's a big menu right there. It's a big matzo ball.
Yeah, big matzo ball. I also had Mercer and Hogart from Murray State on my list of fun players. Their pressers all weekend in Durham were great. Like all their players were so thoughtful and kind of funny, and really enjoyed that team a lot. Gosh, I've got a lot of players on my list here. Shout out to Shintaro Inoue, Kansas State, just a fun little energy guy that I enjoyed early in the year. Braden Burris, East Carolina, as always, there's a lot of second basemen on my list. Daniel Dickinson from LSU. Dickinson was that guy that I talked about. Like first look at him, was like, man, there's a lot of swag here. I don't know if this guy is for me. He's got the everything with his getup. But you talk to him and it's like he's got like heart, and it seems he seems like a real kid. I really liked him. Let's see, I had Ogden on this list as well. Ozzie Pratt at Southern Miss is a super fun player, shortstop.
That's a good one.
Also, JB Middleton, I enjoyed talking to him at Southern Miss. Obviously, he's electric to watch as well. Neat to see him kind of figure it out in his third year there, kind of harness his talent. Dean West, UCLA. I mean, Chalowski certainly, special. I've made this comp before, but Chalowski gives me that the kind of Dansby Swanson vibe with just like who he is. But Dean West is also just like a little undersized, bat control, pitch discipline, classic old school setup guy atop the order. I like that a lot. Riley Johnson, East Carolina, just this like warrior. This guy who's like taped together, he's just like so many injuries he's had to overcome playing through, and like it just like he seemed kind of creaking his way, to post game, just like it felt like he's right out of the Gladiators ring, and very emotional after he played his last game for East Carolina. I like that kid a lot. Another small, smaller sized kid that just is a warrior. Kane Kepley, North Carolina, really fun player. See him step into the Vince Honeycutt job and do a pretty good job with it. And then I'm gonna shout out Riley Eichhoff from Coastal. Here's a great idea, guys. Throw strikes, as Wayne Graham would say. Throw strikes. This guy pounds his own, and that makes him fun. His games tend to go quickly. Let that great defense work out. So I like his style, the cut of his jib. Little Thomas Eshelman-esque. But also, again, cool personality. I liked him in post game, and then Ricky Ojeda I'll call out as well from UC Irvine. That guy is neat. Had a great year for them. Really one of the most important relievers in the country. So another fun dude to talk to as well. So that's my list of some favorite players.
I'll make mine in the interest of time shorter, but first I have to self-report that there was a Rick Russell comp there. So I started Googling because I thought that Rick Russell was the baseball player that retired and has become like a legitimately good, like potentially senior tour level golfer. That was Rick Rhoden though. So my apologies. Both parties there, Rick Russell and Rick Rhoden, for that.
The Ricks.
That confusion. Yeah. Joe Healy regrets the error. I would throw in a name that I don't think I heard in that list. James Quinn Irons from George Mason.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah. The idea that someone that dynamic and, like you get, because at that level of college baseball, we'll see guys that put up some numbers and we're always kind of like, what's the pitching level? What kind of ballpark does he play in? Yada, yada, yada. But this is a guy with literally just a tool shed that, as a junior at George Mason just really popped and has now turned himself into a high-end draft prospect. So it's always nice to see that. On the pitching side, I'll throw Antoine John in there for Houston. Just a cool story of he was a big time recruit for Alabama, and just injuries got to him, like inconsistency, like he wasn't a great strike thrower, like there were all kinds of things happening. He goes to Houston, and I remember when I saw that move just kind of thinking like he'll get opportunity, but it was kind of out on him, I guess. And boy, did he prove me and everybody else wrong. Like he was just dominant for the Cougars this season, won Big 12 Pitcher of the Year. So kudos to him. That's just always a cool story when there's somebody that just keeps at it and then eventually figures it out. And now he's earned himself a shot at a pro career. Like, we'll see how it goes, but he's going to get that opportunity now and probably wouldn't have if he, tried to call it before last season.
That's awesome. I want to, Caden Bodine got a lot of attention in Omaha, as he should have, but I want to call him out because, he's a South Jersey guy, and I got to interview him, and I said, "Go Birds," and he twinkled. That made my heart sing.
Twinkling
twinkling it. And I think like one of my funnest moments from the NCAA tournament was when Coastal went to Auburn, and Auburn's venue was awesome, renovated, packed, raucous, like just everything you think about when you think about an SEC environment. And Auburn didn't play poorly. They played fine, like well, I'd even say. But Coastal went down there, and Caden Bodine, their junior, their leader, he basically said to his team, not only can we hang with these guys, fellas, we're doing this. And he hit 2 home runs in the first game of the Super Regional, one very early. And watching that, you could just feel Coastal, who was a very confident team anyway, but when their guy just like stepped forward and said, "I'm going to be the best player on the field this weekend," like it was, and I'm getting a little dramatic there, but whatever. I choose to do that. So anyway, Caden Bodine was awesome. That was cool. Joe, sometimes in sports, we just have to tip our hat, and that's why we play 3-game series. Fitzy was really feeling it this game. And then when he dropped a Riley Johnson tape together, kind of game, set, match, like kind of checkmate.
Sure, yeah.
You should put the punt team in, maybe pitch off. But all that said, Joe, you're going to get the final word because our final topic is, I want to talk about the Missouri Valley Conference. You are Valley Joe. You are the de facto commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you. De facto commissioner of defunct, de facto, tomato, 2 totally different words. You're the Valley Commissioner of Baseball. And 2021, Dallas Baptist goes to a Super Regional. 2023 is Indiana State goes to a Super Regional. 2024, Evansville goes to a Super Regional. 2025, Murray State goes to Omaha. What a run for the Valley. I mean, holy heck. Joe, as the commissioner, I just want to say congratulations. I love what you've done here, and just wanted to give you a chance to comment on your tenure's great success.
Thank you, Runes. I appreciate that. I do consider myself a bit of a commissioner there as the host of the weekly Rawlings First Pitch segments for the Missouri Valley Conference. On a serious note, like I do think it is, some of it is just, I don't want to say fluky, because those are all those teams you named were good teams that earned it. But some of that is just like good draws and things like that working out in their favor. But I think the other part of this is that I think it goes to show, and I don't just say this because I'm someone who knows people in that administration at the league level. It's true. Like, that conference wants to be good at baseball, and puts resources behind it. Now, are they going to have the resources of the true power conferences? No. Or maybe even the Sun Belt on a baseball level? No. But they've decided that we're going to do what it takes to be a 2-bid league. That is kind of their benchmark. They're always looking to be a 2-bid league. And that's gotten harder as they've lost, previous iterations. They obviously way back, they lost Creighton and Wichita State and what have you. And then DBU left, and now Missouri State is leaving. And yet you look at those last 4 super regional teams, DBU's gone, but the other 3 are in the league currently. And I presume will be in the years to come. So there is something to build off of here. I think it just goes back to, do you want to be good at baseball as a league or not? And I hear from every head coach I talk to in the Missouri Valley, they know that's the case. They don't have to wonder if their league cares about baseball. And I'm sure you guys hear similar things. Like, I talk to a decent number of mid-major coaches, and I don't hear that from most of them. And in some cases, they probably care. The league probably cares more about baseball than the coaches think. But the Missouri Valley is one where they never have to wonder about that. And I think there's value in that, and we're seeing it on the field.
Somewhere Kurt Reed is putting a plaque on a restroom wall with great joy in his heart. And so, Kurt Reed, if you're listening, we salute you. Fitzy,
I like
Go
the
ahead.
idea of Kurt Reed himself going around hanging up plaques about all the restrooms about the Kurt Reed restroom. Just something he does in his off season. It's like tagging it, with like a sticker. He just puts a plaque up, and whenever he's in the bathroom, Kurt Reed was here.
It's the new helmet stickers. It's the helmet stickers for baseball. He goes over and puts a plaque in the restroom of the team that just really stood out to him.
Oh, that's so good. Yes, you do you, Kurt. We're here for it. Fitzy, congratulations on your great performance on this podcast. It's very Gage Wood-esque, in my opinion. I mean, just very as
Extremely
Jay
strong.
Johnson said, LSU, that was the quote of the postseason. Jay said, "The tournament is our time." And I think that might be the case for you, Fitzy. Like this podcast was your time to rise up.
It's our time, coach. It's our time down here.
It makes
all
sense
over the minute, right up Troy's bucket. Go on.
As much as Aaron loves fall ball, this really is his time. Like he's a big fall ball guy. He's ramping up for his season. That the College World Series is just a warm up for fall ball for him. So he's coming into his best time of year. So it makes some sense that he would be cresting right now.
Cresting.
Many people are calling me Fitty fall ball, they say.
Yeah, that's right.
Joe, you may get a lot of criticism in the press for using cresting at the end of a losing podcast. Like, why would you not save cresting for Game 2 of the series? You have a lot to answer to there.
Just peacocking for no reason.
I think we're just trying. I just think we're trying to put our no matter what the scoreboard says, we're just always trying to put our best foot forward, and maybe that means we burn some, fire some bullets at a time where it's not necessarily the most efficient thing, but we're just always going out to do our best.
I like it. Yeah, you can't just punt at bats at the end of a bad game. You got to that momentum matters. Gentlemen, thank you for indulging me on this. I've always wanted to do this podcast. I think I just love having the opportunity to just empty our brains from the previous season as the draft is barreling towards us, and Cape Cod and Team USA, et cetera, et cetera. So, and the transfer portal, of course, all that stuff. So, well done, everyone. Want to say thank you again to our sponsors, Academy Sports and Outdoors, Soldier Sports, Tecovas Boots, Turtle Box. Thank you to the listeners. Obviously, none of this matters unless people are paying attention, and we appreciate your passion for college baseball so much. That is it. Everyone have a great week, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.